Hello everyone, Zaten and Tamo. E-program for the good of the people. Mi pi kan chat hem pi thay dinga. Pi mi program hi sadu thanak tum pi kan nei nak so. Ya I mirang kan ti tell me ram thang sau kan ti ke so. Mi pi an thang sau raw nak te pola hin. Foundation tam pi an zero ti kan thai fiang. Himi an zero mi te a hin atlang pi chu chu na ka Clark Howard ti vek Dave Ramsey ti vek consumer advocate an ti Dave Ramsey la chu church tum pi pin an som hai kum khat vai khat ti vek an som hai in ra zero ti kha an som ro ri mi pon si an ni hi customer ti selem lawin consumer chat nem pi nak dinga ti chau tha than ngan radio program an nei TV program an nei chumi te te an zero mi te hi kan lak ve nak chu si hi an chau tla pu chunan hmuring hina hin I kan sadu tha zat mi chu foundation kan thei ve dinga zir thei mi le kan zir thei ve nak dinga ti program mi kan run thla mi si zat tin te kan run to tum dingi mi pi nan ma kan za te in kan chat nem pi ding kan sadu tha zat mi program si kan long oi zat.
Hello, everyone. Another series of this video series for the good of the people. And today we have Rome Thalop in his beautiful office here, downtown Indianapolis. And I thought it'd be great to hear his perspective on a lot of the financial issue of the day, so to speak, especially for our Burmese diaspora group, Chin people especially. So we'll probably spend some time and kind of chit chat, nice conversation with Rome. And so I'll, if you don't mind, he'll probably most of the time will speak in English, unless you want to do Mizo also. That's fine. But I'll probably do a little bit of Falam as well, or Chin as well. And we can just kind of do that if that's okay.
That's fine with me.
Okay, yeah. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Right. When I was born in Lunglei in Mizoram, I came here when I was 3 years old. My mom at the time was just my mom. My father didn't get the UVAN situation, but it was my mom and my 3 siblings, so four kids total. So that must be very tough. At a foreign, I'm the youngest. I'm the youngest. Yeah. Okay. So with with a mom and 4 kids, no English. There was only a select group of people at the time. There wasn't that many. We didn't have 30,000 people. Yeah. We only had maybe I don't even know if it's 100. A few families, I would say, and we all went to church together. So they spoke. I was the only Mizo speaking at the church at the time. You know where the old the Mizo Christian church is currently?
Yes.
That's where we all went to church when we first got here, and everyone spoke Hakka or different languages. But I spoke Mizo, but we all spoke English together. So that's how we started. How I grew up. I grew up basically in the church, and I've gotten to see the community kind of grow. Yeah. I've kind of grown up with the community. Is what I would like to say. But then I went to Perry. I went to Perry middle school and high school. I graduated in Monrovia for wrestling. So my senior year, I went to Monrovia High School. It's like literally in the middle of nowhere. It's like the football field is basically a cow field. So
you were recruited.
Basically, I was recruited. Nice. But I wrestled there. Then I went to I started my business. I had a gap year, started my business, and I went to school, at Harvard. And then I studied political science. That was my concentration. In government, it's a prerequisite to law school. So I've always wanted to go to law school. So I've been, but it hasn't made its call to me yet. But I'm really happy to do what I'm doing. After college, I went to New York to start my investment management firm. So it's an alternative investment management firm, which means we invest in just alternative investments instead of the typical stocks, ETFs. So I started the firm, COVID-19. the situation in the coup in Burma was speaks a lot to me. I really wanted to do my part, and at that moment, I was like, "These are my people. We got to help them out, and we got to do something. At least I have to play a part in making a difference or a cause." So I came back to India, wanted to be with my family. COVID-19, at the time you were scared, we were all scared. I was scared for my father, my mother, so I was like, let's go back to home. So we went back home and started another company here. I was like, well, why don't we make a second branch, or we start a development firm, and that's where we're at.
Terrific. That's a almost a your typical in a Burmese boy, a Chin boy, what you would dream about, so to speak.
Yeah.
And we talked about a little bit of wrestling,
Yeah.
high school and things. What in here, I think every university sort of almost requires you to take some sort of sports to go along. What do you think? Is that beneficial to maybe some of the young folks that are
Absolutely.
listening? What do you think that plays a part in life?
It plays a big role in life, and I think without wrestling makes me overcome adversity. And in terms of business, and if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to go through adversity. I mean, I'm sure you're an entrepreneur yourself.
Absolutely.
So wrestling is extremely challenging. It's an individual sport, and it's kind of it's all in your mindset, and you have to overcome yourself.
Yeah.
It's not like basketball or football where you have like a wide receiver or a point guard. Oh, he played too. But if you lose in a wrestling match, it's on you.
Yeah.
So it's and then you have teammates.
Yeah.
It brings you work together with people. You have camaraderie.
Yeah.
Those things are very essential qualities.
Absolutely.
I think they're very important.
I absolutely totally agree. To this day, as a father, I tell my 14-year-old son and my 13-year-old daughter, and say it's about the teamwork in itself, and then more importantly, probably how to win, how to lose,
How to take losing.
graciously, absolutely, and how to try your best. Those are the things that I think sports definitely taught me a lot of that, and I wish, and I tell this to my kids, is that you just have to take it now.
Right.
It's like, I don't want to, take practice, but when you go to college, you're gonna have to take a sports or something. So go ahead and take it now.
Right.
So
my coach used to always say, and Coach Shutley and Coach Tante at the time in Perry. If you went to Perry, everyone knows those coaches. But they always used to say, there's no secret ingredient to winning. You work hard. There's a little bit of luck involved, but if you work hard, you're gonna end up winning most of the time. And obviously there's a little bit of luck, but mostly it's really sheer hard work. And that's what I've learned in wrestling, and that's what have brought me to that correlated with my profession. I worked extremely hard for everything. So and I just love what I do as well. So it helps.
Yeah. Well, going toward that, and in the bit of background, so to speak, especially in the last 4 or 5 years in our community, stock, bond, investments, and that is.
Right.
That is such a word now,
Right.
that everyone's talking about in the community, and so I wonder if you can give us if you can talk to us like a 6-year-old, so to speak, because for many of us it's a field that we're not familiar with,
right.
coming from Burma or anywhere else, and it's just new territory. So if you can give us just a basic understanding part of it.
Okay.
And then maybe the second part of the question would be, when we talk about, when someone talk about, hey, you should buy this, you should look at that, what are specific that we should look at?
Okay.
So maybe just an overall picture of the things, and then the second part of the question might be a bit of specific things that we should look into.
Right. I think, so with my field, we do alternative investment management, which we invest in primarily in real estate.
Yeah.
So our funds are specifically allocated for institutional investors and accredited investors. So it won't my firm, how it works, and I get these questions all the time. Can we invest in your company? I go, absolutely not, because they're built for banks and institutions and family offices. So our funds are holded for 7 years, and what we do is we invest in private companies or in real estate. So that's why we call it alternative investment management. But we do have RIAs, which is our registered investment advisors, which can give fiduciary advice to people. I'm not an RIA, but people in my firm are.
Sure.
But in terms of investment, you invest in things that you really know and that you're confident in, is what my fundamental goal is and advice is. And in terms of stocks and bonds and ETFs, unless you are very dedicated for that, then you can do it yourself. But I'd recommend having it go to like Merrill Lynch, which is a Bank of America investment management. They can invest in the S&P 500, which hasn't lost in, like since the 1900s.
That is such an interesting point.
Right.
Yes.
And it's diversified. So when you invest in a portfolio, when you go to a investment management firm, I mean your local banks would have it. If you have I don't know if PNC has it. I know Chase has it. Well, JP Morgan, that's where I go to. JP Morgan Wealth Management, Asset Management. What happens is they diversify your portfolio. So you're investing essentially in either, depending on what your portfolio looks like. Your portfolio looks like kind of depends on what your income level is, what your savings level is. So it depends on how much you earn. It has all types of contingencies. But let's say you are doing pretty well. You make an account with JP Morgan, and then they diversify your portfolio, and it compounds. So in the next 10 years, you can retire. You can retire comfortably. But if you let it, the money, if you have it in just your checking account, it's not good for you either. Because remember, inflation is like, right now it's like, what, 7%, 8%. So you just put, let's say you have $1 million in the bank, you minus 7%. That's how much you're losing if you're having it in a checking account. So you would like to have it in an interest-bearing savings account. I wouldn't recommend having your portfolio in cash. I rarely have cash, and if I want to liquidate, I can just call to liquidate and have it in cash. And that's what I do. But I would really recommend diversification and investing in like companies or like some types of different vehicles of investments. I would always do your due diligence and make sure you do not invest that in one company or one organization. You don't invest a lot of your earnings into it, because you don't want to invest too much of your let's say you make $100,000 a year and you invest 25,000 of that to a business. Unless it's your own business and you have control over it, I don't recommend that investment going through, because if you have $1 million, you invest 25,000. That's okay. That's fine. It's not a big damage to your portfolio. But if you have $1 million and you do 25,000, that's fine. But 100,000, you do 25. That's a quarter of your earnings gone. So that's kind of like a
Right. So
I call it calculative gambling. That's what I call it, and I don't like gambling.
That's a word that a lot of folks talk about. Is that I guess the old saying, if something is too good to be true, watch it type deal.
Right. Exactly. I mean, like, look, the S&P market is usually like 7 to 10%, and if you have like $100,000, 7% of that, maybe $10,000, but it compounds. It's safe. It's extremely safe. So those are kind of manageable investment. But if people like they get rich, it's not gonna happen. And if I had the formula for it, then I'd be a bajillionaire. So
one of the things that I think this video series is trying to discuss and kind of have a conversation is more of a sort of a foundation, shall I say. And I think you and I talked about this too many times, is that especially in our community, we have an opportunity that really, I mean, with both degrees. It's almost like God's blessing that we're able to be here
Right.
in this situation. Many of us have been here 10, 15, 20 years to just struggle and do our own, the work that we have to work and the cars and so on and so forth. And maybe it's sort of the second step, so to speak, that we have an opportunity to be able to talk like this.
Right.
Even talk about money, so to
Right.
speak. And in those foundation type, one of the things that my sister's kids that they go to Sunday school down in Atlanta, that this preacher taught to the Sunday school. I thought it was very interesting. Is that he brought 3 jars, and one of the jars it says 10, the other one is 10, the other one's 80. So he says, okay, the 10% is, of course, as a Christian, donate. The 10% is for your savings or your pension, and then you live off that 80%.
He program he Atlanta church pakati an Sunday school class polan zirmi si kan ke cho achatuk kati ki kafale ka zirve an zir dan so jar kan ti mo kuang te kha kuang fate kha pathuman pek pakata atluna an ngan sak te 10% 10% 80% tinan ngan khai kuang pathum kha so 10% apakat nak so pathian thanga chan khat or donation ti khan ngan sak apan hi nak 10% kha long term savings anti kan ni sun pension kan te kati so le apathum nak kha 80% spend anti an ma ta ti du nak hilam so kan thei ve ken an fa le ki in lam te an hatwan an bom mo so le in leng an thian fai an bom mo in song thian fai bom mo ti vek te akin an zirok mi ki pocket money te khan pek thau se kha fanga ma fang tha ma ajiang zat khala si le khami te kha chen tha 10% hina fe 10% hina fe ding chun hi tin fe ding 80% ti kha an zir mi chu si so le khai 10% pathian thang an ti mi kha biakin an thlen tin te kha an keng ter cho le khai 10% long term saving kan ti ke mo pension ti mi kha cha tham lo ding dai lo ding an ti kha an nu le pa khan bank account an on sak ti ka khan thun sak cho le 80% atang mi kha an ma rang ti si kami kha ke kha kan ni kan song kan du to ki pakhat 10% kan bet 10% kha pathian rang 10% kha long term pension rang cho le 10% kan tin kha project tin kan ngan sak kami kha kan sadu tha nak so an u naw za te sunga kha jiang sima project an nei tlangi an tuan tlang an thun tlangi khati khan ki thil lei du mi te mo an lei tlang ti mi te kha kan du sak chana chumna ka computer ti vex ke chati an u naw za an kha khan an thun ni khatok sunga khan chumia khan ki computer man lei mo segway ti vek mo an du mi te khan lei chun 70% atang mi kha kha nan du dan ten nan hang ke chu ti khan khami kha kan zir ve i athazet foundation an ti mi hi ilam hi chu ram thang sau mi phim deuh pawh kan ti pe chu na chu ni foundation ki tu pi tu kan an ruati hi mi hi an Sunday school te an zir mi si athatuk lo ma mi nan in te jiang tin nan ruat ya alungoi
That you have taken care of things already.
Right.
Whatever sort of leftover, so to speak, if you have an extra money,
Right.
that you should start thinking about extra in the portfolio that you mentioned and other areas. Is that about what you're
Right. Exactly. Exactly what I'm discussing is because your risk appetite depends on your income level. So if you have high income, obviously your risk appetite is a little bit higher than the person that's making half of what you're making, right? So you're making a guy that's making or a person that's making 100,000 versus a person that's making 50,000. Different risk appetite.
Absolutely.
That's why we have this thing called if you have a PPM or private placement memorandum, if you invest in a private company, you usually have a PPM or a private fund. The securities attorney really writes these up for us. We have this thing called a questionnaire in there that states: Are you a net worth of do you make 300,000 or something like that, or do you have a net worth of $1 million in assets, not including your primary residence? So that's what the question is. So the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, really wants you to be careful.
Right.
That's why they made these.
Right.
They made these for you to be careful of where you're investing. They're there to protect you.
Gotcha.
So if you look at the private placement memorandum when you invest in a private company, it usually states, if you read it, it usually just they're there to protect you. You're not even qualified to invest if you're not one of those two.
Absolutely.
Obviously, you can have a questionnaire that can go around it, but then there's a bunch of disclosures you have to do.
Right.
But it depends on your risk appetite, and I always recommend, if you don't believe me, go to your bank.
Yeah.
Your bank, you believe in your bank. So if you have, there's Edward Jones. That's for like kind of Edward Jones. I'd recommend. I mean, some people have like massive amounts of funds there, but for people that's starting off, Edward Jones, J.P. Morgan has a bit of. You have to have a bit of income to start in J.P. Morgan. Sure. You have to put like a couple $100,000 in J.P. Morgan. Then in Edward Jones, you can put 25, 30, 40. Gotcha. Same with Merrill Lynch. Gotcha. But how they package your portfolio, your retirement plan, is all up to you. For example, if I say, look, I want to retire by I'm 50. Right. How do I make that happen? They'll go. The advisor usually goes, well, this is how...
like a roadmap.
Right, a roadmap. They build a comprehensive roadmap. Right. And you don't have to make an account to talk to these people. People don't understand that. Like, the knowledge is extremely expensive. Ignorance is expensive. Mm-hmm. And it has, as a business owners, it has costed us a lot of money. So it's free to talk to these. You don't have to open up an account to talk to these people. They'll listen to you. They'll talk. Schedule an appointment. Just have a conversation, because your portfolio just really depends on where you're at financially. So I can't give advice for everyone, because they're financially might be different from where I'm at, or some of my cousins at, or someone from Kansas or something is at. So it really depends on your portfolio. So we'd have to really trickle down and see where you're at financially, where you want to get at, what's your goal. Gotcha. Do you want to have like a 529 or 502 plan for like a college plan for your kids? ETFs, mutual funds, those are good. I have an ETFs, mutual funds. For example, if I want to have passive income on those, I could put 30% of my portfolio into like monthly income for me. Yeah. So I can have some income if I don't have a job. But if you have a job, why would you do that? So that really depends on your situation again. Absolutely. But I'd always recommend just talk to an advisor. Like there's advisors everywhere, and it's free to talk to them.
Yeah. It's such a good idea. You mentioned about the college plans, which I have for my kids. I thought it's just absolutely terrific.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, let's say my 5-year-old. That's when I started. And like, when he went from 5 to 18, that's potentially when he'll go to college. And they planned for us exactly. Okay, put in $30 a month. In 10 years he'll turn it. So my plan is to be able to have him maybe $10,000 a year for 4 years. So I started back, and when he's 5 or 6, whatever, and it tells you how much to deposit every month. And it's sort of like I think. Every state has that.
They do.
Like Indiana or Georgia.
You have a contribution amount.
Exactly. So it tells you exactly, you can put this amount, and it'll turn into $10,000 a year for 4 years when he turns 18. I mean, we can't beat that,
Right.
And so I thought that was such a good point to.
I think a lot of our community doesn't have that understanding yet, and it's not their fault either. It's obviously we're from the third world to first world. There's a bit of a transition, but I think this is something that needs to be talked more about.
Absolutely, and hopefully this is the start of a beginning of a good series to come. Right. And so we mentioned about that 10% of the donation and the 10% for the long-term saving. How do you feel about the 401k program that's out there? Many of our community members are working different many companies. How do you feel about that? Or what other options do they have if they're not that comfortable?
Right. I mean, a 401k plan is essentially for when you're employed and for a company. And if you look up your 401k, you could probably Vanguard, Fidelity. Like for example, when my mom worked, she had it in Vanguard. So basically, they have the Vanguard and Fidelity are investment management firms, vehicles, and firms that invest like I think, $1 trillion portfolio. But 401ks are really good, I think, and if you're working, you should contribute.
Gotcha.
Obviously, there's you can get penalized if you do a early withdrawal, and there's some tax implications. They don't want you to take it out unless you're actually, retiring or you hit a certain age.
Emergency.
Right, emergency, or if you're investing in, for example, a business that you really believe in. I think I am an entrepreneur by spirit, so I really can't. My advice can't transition to the everyday people sometimes because I bet on myself. And I think if you believe in yourself, I think you should always bet on yourself. But I think you also should be very smart at your financial capacity, But
as they say, don't put all the eggs
in one basket. Right. I mean, that's the whole thing about diversification. Like when you invest like 100, 200,000 in one company, you better make sure that you believe in that company, you have a say in that company, you have some voting shares in that company. But 401ks are good. I think 401ks is established, and I think they're good. Roth IRAs are really good. So, and one thing I really want to discuss about is a lot of there's a lot of people work in sushi and fruit. And when you work in your sushi and fruit, you don't have a 401k plan for you.
That's right.
Please make a Roth IRA. Obviously, there's a contribution limit, but please make a Roth IRA or open a brokerage account. One of those two things, because you don't have a retirement plan. So you need to have a retirement plan. Are you gonna be working till you're 60, 70, and you're gonna have cash in your account? I just told you the inflation rate, and that's how much you're losing. So, inflation means cost of goods going up. So basically, if you go to the grocery store, cost is going to go up in the next year or two from where it is now. I'm sure we've already experienced that. If you look up the United States dollar, a $100 bill in the 1990s, and if you convert that to where it is now, the $100 bill in the 1990s has a lot more buying power in the 90s than it does now. Now, $100 bill doesn't have as much buying power as it did in the 90s. So that's what you call inflation. And we have to be very wary of that, because how are you your money has to make money for you. So if you put it in a S&P or in a investment management account and you get 7-8% interest and not losing, that's really good for you. And one thing I'd also mention with cash is, the FDIC only insures $250.
Right.
So if you have more than $250,000 in your bank account, and banks go bankrupt all the time, with Silicon Valley Bank, SVP Bank, and a multi-billion-dollar bank. I think we have seen a historic number of banks collapse in this year, and they collapse all the time. So when you go, Chase Bank will never collapse. Well, what about 2008 market crash when Lehman Brothers collapsed and HSBC was in the brinks of bankruptcy?
They were too big to
fail. They thought you were big, but you can fail. Yes. So I always go, don't ever put more than $250, or you can have it insured, but more than $250 in your bank account. If the bank collapsed, they only give you that $250. So, for example, why would you have $1 million in the bank account? If you have $1 million in the bank account, and the bank collapses, you only get $250 out of that $1 million. So you're losing $750,000, which is,
They need to talk to you.
Right. Now you got to really so.
Tutum he roamed on to finance to Hakan Rail me he atam son to foundation hilam ki ram thang so an mi people jiang tin ha thu ha an ruwa dan ti foundation tu lai tam non kan ruat tlang e pakhat kan ruat tlang mi hi run share ve sel kha now hak le pol 10% ti kan run ti mi program kha thon an fe pi thau ti cho fiang sa dan ni hi 10% chu pathian ranga donation mo chumi kha
อันตุ่มจัดเวสิก็จะแล้วปัญหาหน้าก็เห็นอัน0เรื่องมีโจ10% ตัลใน income 10% ตัลที่โจ pension fund long term สังที่ pension สังอีที่อาคารที่กันนี่อะไรกันนี่ตลาดโจ10% ที่มาเดี๋ยวที่เมนยังที่เล็กกันถกอัตราตลาดสิเมนที่จะนะครับ10 to 15% ตัลที่โจกัน pension สังเรทที่เสร็จแล้วที่มีโจดูจัดตินกรวดจุมีอาเห็นคีรวมเขาเล่นรุ่นที่เรามีค่ะ 401k ที่จะทุกตัวแล้ว401k จะลองเสร็จแล้วค่ะ 401k ส่งอาคันนั่นหมายกันหมายนัดวันนักคอมพานีคันอันรุ่นเบ็ดหลายจะมีค่ะจะคอมพานีอันไหนเสียจนเขามีส่งอาลุดแดง max กันที่ไปสุดที่ตั้มไทยต่อกันคัดคันที่ไทยเสร็จแล้วจะดูจัดเขามี401k สิไทยเราบอกฟังกันเจ้าจานประคัดลำจีนออนลามีจะ IRA Roth IRA ละจะมีแต่ค่ะเขามีตลาดจะทุนริมดึงเดียค่ะรวมนาเป็นอินรุนซิมค่ะ401k สิเราเลย Roth IRA ที่เวกตลจะที่ pension ฟังกันจนเรทเตียงถ้า10 to 15% มั้งจะมีค่ะจะแลประคัดอรุณที่มีทุกปีจะมีจะที่ฮิตตัวกับ financial advisor ที่มีอันอมีจุดหลักเมนนะค่าย 401k ที่เวกจน Roth IRA เขาเสร็จคดีเรทเมนเซลล์วันที่เรทที่ก็คืออัน manager มาจะเราเลย account manager บอกอันเรา contact สุดที่ไปสานเรทมีเสียงที่สองอินฮะที่ long term investment นะดูที่อันเราสุดแต่งสุดเราเทเราสิค่ะจุดที่ก็จนจุดนั้นก็ medium risk high risk low risk เสียงที่สองอินฮะเรทดูที่มีค่าอันเราสุดดึงจุดนั้นก็ 30% ให้หินะ30% ให้หินะ30% ให้ขณะที่เวกินมาเสียงที่สองนี่สมัติค่าย 401k ค่ะเขามีค่าตอนเราเรียดูละท่าจะมีหัวตัวโรมารุนที่มีจะ financial advisor ที่มีจะชุนักที่อะไรเงี้ยเห็นที่ Edward Jones ที่เวก fidelity advisor ที่เวกบอกที่ free สิจะมีคันว่าตรงไทยเสียละก็ต่างปีจนโอเคนูฟ้ากันไหนฟ้าปัตนิกันไหนตัวให้กลุ่มฮิจัดกษีกลุ่มฮิจัดทรองคันพินจินละไทยเสียละก็ดูจะติกาจนคลักขตายังจะทรองตูนไทยตูลอาชาที่มีบอลเตะบอกเขาอินตัวสักเจจะมีลองสิละวัน The podcast interview with Rome will continue next week on part 2 series ไม่สระที่ Rome interview กันตัวมีฮี podcast กันตัวมีฮี part 2 in ราดิงี้จางฟ้าเต้นรักง่ายสาลิงกันก็เราซ้อมลงอ้อย